My name is Roland Gesthuizen. I'm a high school teacher and e-learning leader in Victoria, Australia. I'm also a member of the ACCELN, and I'm weaving my way to the end of the year. We have a calendar year in Australia, and unlike my friend here, Chris, with me, and I'll introduce Chris in a moment, but Amanda.
I'm Amanda Rablin. I'm an e-learning coordinator in Brisbane. Apparently, according to my script, I tinker with making rocking horses. That's not true. I actually make rocking horses for my daughter, and I love making spaces, creating, and here's my show and tell prop, which we'll find out more about later, I'm sure. Did you have a fun Halloween?
Oh, it was awesome. Lynn and I went out to the city, and lots and lots of people walking around with various skeletal costumes. I had fun just chilling in that and taking the atmosphere. Beautiful night, very Mediterranean. I also had a lot of fun with the David Bowie exhibition. The guy's a creative, artistic genius. And it was wonderful to see that at the Australian Centre for the Moving Image. Caught up with an old friend, Vincent Trundle, and yeah, really good weekend. And the whole city stopped for something strange, wasn't it?
Something unusual?
Yeah, something with horses. I heard in the newspaper that a woman had won, but it was a horse, I thought. But yeah, enough about the Melbourne Cup. Chris, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Christopher Dawkins. I'm a retired ICT teacher from England. I happen to be in Melbourne at the moment with Roland, but tomorrow
I picked up on that.
That's it. I didn't know how he's arranged the picture, so both of us are together. It seems to be wider than normal, which must be something clever to do with his Mac. But I'm just passing through at the moment, and about an hour ago, all my home systems went down, which was a great pity because I wanted to talk about them. And so I can't talk about them because we had a power cut in my house in England, which caused by builders building an extension. So I'm afraid I can't show you anything at the moment. But what I can talk about things.
Yeah. Before we do, I was going to just quickly weave over where Chris has been. Chris has been travelling around the world, and here we are in the eastern burbs of Melbourne. Is that sharing all right, Amanda?
Yep, coming through.
Okay, and this is for anyone who hasn't seen it before. That's Australia. We've done this deliberately for our Northern Hemisphere friends because the reality is Australia's flipped around the other way. But I'll keep the
Northern Hemisphere view.
Yeah, that's right. We'll keep it flipped up this way, upside down for our Northern Hemisphere friends. Chris has been to Perth, where you caught up with a number of friends from your...
That's it.
When were you in Perth, mate?
I taught there for a year, 1989 to 90, and I came over as an exchange teacher. I taught in Scotch College as head of IT, actually as director of computing from 89 to 90, and I came back to renew old acquaintances. One of the old acquaintances at dinner said he thought that all mobile phones should be banned in all classrooms. So that's one of the bees in my bonnet, which I'll bring up later.
Yeah, Chris has given us a couple of bees to buzz over, and I'd like to go straight into that if I can, Amanda.
Sure.
Okay. Now, Chris, just having a look at your list here, the use of smartphones in classrooms, you know, I know there are lots of posters at our school that mobile phones must not be seen and must not be heard.
That's terrible.
But they must be smart. Kids need somewhere to download their intelligence.
Precisely.
So what do you think are the reasons why people are so resistant to that? Because there would have been a time when we've clamoured for the idea of having portable personal computers.
The answer is that smartphones can be used for too many things we don't want in the classroom, such as games and Twitter and all these other things, and emails, and it can be used for many thousands of things. This is very useful in some ways, but a great pity in a classroom where you really need to do just one thing at a time. However, I think there should be software on a smartphone. There is already some software, but it's not very suitable, in my view, for controlling them. So a teacher can control what apps are running at when, and particularly limit them to a particular app and turn on a particular app in all of them. And even though these are the pupils' own smartphones, this seems to me perfectly possible, and I do not know why such control software, suitable control software, does not exist at the moment.
I'm able to make good use of it in my senior classes. I make it very clear that to keep on task. We've got some things to do. It's important. I don't have the time, the patience for some of the distractions because we want to move quickly for this work. I don't confiscate the phones. I don't think they should be ringing up and disturbing. Usually there's a sort of a cry if anyone tries to answer the phone. Everyone says, "Hello, Mum." The reality is that the kids see them as a very personal device.
Precisely, they are. When I'm reading a book, and I read many novels and many other books, I have my smartphone beside me all the time. And as I'm reading, when I come across anything I'm not sure about, like where Casablanca is, or where Tbilisi is, or what was happening in 98, I look it up on Google, and I take it up, and I then put the smartphone down and get back to the book. And then a paragraph later, I find something else I don't quite understand. I look it up again on Google. And this is the proper use of a smartphone as an encyclopedia. I wish all pupils would do this all the time. And I wish the smartphone could be used in the classroom continuously. It does control software. Given suitable control software, it could be used all the time. And rarely we have these new smartphones around now. Our job as teachers should be teaching people to make suitable use of them.
Yes, because we laugh at the idea of taking selfies, as I've just taken one of the cameras there. And that's a new form of communication, students. It's recording a place, a time, and an experience, and a relationship.
That's it.
My friend said it was...
They have huge numbers of new forms of communication on the smartphones. And our job should be teaching people to use this new technology rather than just simply turning it off, banning it, and as in a number of schools, totally banning the smartphones, collecting them at the beginning of the day, giving them out at the end of the day, which is a really terrible example to set in the use of new technology. So I have been fighting this for some time. I'm now retired. I can't fight it any longer. And I just wish suitable software had been developed.
Sounds like a mission for us to continue championing, Amanda.
I'm wondering.
Teachers do need to be able to control the classroom, and most teachers can't control them if half the class has free use of their smartphone, can switch between app and app, can do other things at the same time. We're all used to multitasking with them.
And if you don't have that consensus where you make your expectations really clear, what it is that you want to have out of that lesson and how they're going to be able to use it, and making an appropriate use of it, like you said, looking up a word, looking up a concept, sending out a quick email post. It's a different thing though.
And he's filming a teacher or something like that.
Yeah, that's an appropriate use of it.
Which you can't really stop unless you've got some form of electronic control of the smartphones while they're in the classroom.
Oh, I suggested that once with you, wasn't it? We were going to wrap the school in chicken wire.
No, we just need to have, you've got very good location awareness in smartphones, coupled not only with the big location awareness, the Google and the whatever it is, you can have very short range location awareness using the other communication facilities, the short-range communication facilities in the smartphones. You can, and with this, I can design software that would control them, so when the pupil entered the classroom, he'll be under control of the teacher, and when he left it, the classroom, he'd then be out of control. Or rather, he'd be under control of the school. When he left the school property, he'd be out of control of the school. And I do not know why such software is not widely available at the moment, because the smartphones can be used for so many things, not only looking things up on Google, but question and answer sessions. I found it very useful in the classroom many years ago, like 25 years ago, to have all the computers under control of one of my programs, whereupon while teaching I could ask questions like teaching chemistry, copper sulfate, what color is it? If I get a row of 25 blues written there, I know it's right. A few whites as well would tell me, okay, some of them know it's anhydrous. And a few empty lines would show people who's asleep.
And that awareness is what a good teacher does. I mean, you're having this ongoing dialogue, you're chatting with the kids.
You are asking questions. I think in normal teaching, you should be asking questions 1/3 of the time. And the old system of putting up your hands to answer is an awful waste of time. Much better is a new system whereby you throw out a question, everyone types the answer in on their smartphone, you see it on your master screen, and you can see immediately who's awake, who's asleep, who knows the answer, and who doesn't.
So, Christopher, there are actually some apps and programs that do that kind of thing, but they don't have that full-scale control. And my question to you would be, do we actually need to have that full-level control? If, say, a student is not sure about a word and they want to be able to pop into a dictionary app or something like that, as long as there's a way of a teacher knowing how many students aren't directly in the lesson app or program, and there's things like Nearpod, and there's another one called Atlas something as well, that do allow that interactivity, and they'll let you know when a student is inactive. So you can go, oh, Freddie, get back.
I think the answer is that a top-level teacher can handle it whatever happens, but you've got to be able to enable the ordinary teacher and the bottom-level teachers to have control, because as soon as they lose control, they're dead. And they will lose control unless they've actually got very good software control of what's running on the phones.
I found it handy to teach some of the teachers the body language that kids have. You can see their behaviour if they're reading something on the desk, if they're using the 2 fingers and they're playing, in fact, some game on the laptop.
But you've got to be a medium-level to high-level teacher to do that. There are many lower-level teachers, they're probably very good at many things, and they need help in controlling a class. And if the class is all that loose with their phones, they can't do it. But if they know they can control what's on the smartphone, and other teachers could give more freedom. If the teacher can, and there are apps I know to do this, but what I've seen so far doesn't do it in the way I would want, in a flexible way I could design.
Now, Chris, I'm going to show you quickly a page here. Amanda, I was really chuffed, pleased. There was a in the newspaper, I'll just bring it up on the screen here. There was an article that talked about my students programming. I was really pleased to see some of the robotics work they've been doing, and it talked about the programming that's associated with that robotics work. I'll just give you a quick flash of the screen here. Oh, just lost my mouse for a moment. Here we go. So this is the actual article in the newspaper, and you can see here some of my students. They're not maths geniuses, but they have a real love of being able to bring the outside world in, and we've got a number of sensors and controllers and things. Now, I call this robotics, but Chris has got an interesting angle on it, and the bee in the bonnet that he's actually throwing here is that you can take some of those controls and circuits, but why actually just program with them? You're interested in real-world monitoring. What do you mean by that, Chris?
Well, what I have in my house at the moment, it's not working at the moment, it's packed up about an hour ago, is sensors that monitor, for example, the level of water in the water tank in my roof, that monitor the temperature and light level. I've got also a box of other sensors that I plan to wire in during the next year or two that will let me know temperature inside and outside each room, and let me know doors and windows that are open. In fact, every door and window in my house is wired at the moment with a magnetic switch, not connected to anything yet. I would like to know when they're open and closed. I'd like to know lots of other things about my house. And I've got some main switches in my house I can control from my mobile in Australia, or at least I could until an hour ago.
We should explain that there's been a major power failure in this corner. Yeah, in this corner of England. It's major because it's a major source of inspiration, education, and learning, and part of your home. And do you think that as we're looking at you doing that real-world monitoring, that we can involve kids with cheap devices like Arduinos?
Yes, if kids have got Arduinos at home, why not bung them with a temperature sensor outside their house, so they know always what temperature is just outside the house. They'll learn then the effect of sunlight and the temperature sensor. They'll learn to put it in the shade. So this is what I would use the Arduino for monitoring initially temperatures, light levels, in my case the water level in my water tank, what doors and windows are open and closed at what time. And this is, I mean, I know robotics is fun, and I had a robot arm a long time ago, and it was absolutely fascinating and great fun. But right now, I would use the Arduinos for monitoring these sort of features around a child's house and enabling them to remotely turn these things on and off in any router and use remote DNS services to keep in touch with your home. This I find fascinating, and I would use the Arduinos for this initially, and robotics later. Robotics is a bit too complicated, I think, whereas a single temperature sensor, a contact sensor, a light sensor that can be accessed remotely would be really great fun.
I should say, we keep looking to the right every time he mentions the words robotics. Do you want to just reach over there?
I love having the sensors and the data and things like that. And then there's always the question of, but what can we do with it? And what happens if we add cardboard?
Yes, this is the Make-Do kit. It allows us to actually construct a Formula One racing car, as you can see here. And what we've done is we've actually put into it an Arduino processor and a number of sensors. And it was just a box, I think, the last time I showed it to you. Kids have done an awesome job on it. It's got the stepper motors and the back wheels have fallen off, but we actually have to be honest, pulled it apart to put it in the box. I'm looking forward to my students getting that back in the gear and getting a couple of schools, including yours, Amanda, up and running with that. The challenge when we got this computer was that the students made the comment, could we actually make this? One of them has a Linux operating system, and the technicians were aghast. Some schools call themselves Windows-only schools. Some schools call themselves Mac schools. Yeah, but you've got a much broader vision than that, haven't you?
Not broader, you could say it's narrower. I've been a Unix enthusiast for 30 years or so, if not 40 years. I actually did my first email across the internet in 1975, 40 years ago. And I've been using Linux for the past 10 years. I was using FreeBSD and other Unix operating systems back many years before that. I'm therefore one that, I'm sure we all hate Windows machines, a complete disaster, and I'm sure we got agreement on that. I suspect we don't have agreement about Macs. I think Macs are wonderful machines. I think they're quite inappropriate for use in the classroom. I told a Mac salesman this in 1985 when he telephoned me. I said, yes, they're absolutely wonderful, but don't come to my school to show them off. He said, why not? And I said, because they're too good and everyone will want one. And I don't want one, and I'm the manager, I'm the IT manager here. He said, why don't you want them? And I said, firstly, because you can't open them, they've got special screws. Secondly, because you can't understand what's going on inside them. Whereas when you're using the machines I use, which were at that stage BBC machines, you can open them up and explain everything inside. Things done, and we're using a Mac now, but it's not such a great machine for understanding what's going on underneath the bonnet. Whereas when I have a Linux machine, I can explain every aspect of every operation it's doing using the open software that's on it. Don't ask me to, because some of the things will take me many months to explain, but at least it is in theory totally explainable, totally adjustable, and
it will run on even on some of the older hardware that you'd be throwing out that doesn't run the latest version of.
It will. I mean, I basically was bullied out of my job in my school because I was putting in Unix machines and everyone else wanted Windows machines, and some people wanted Macs.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry,
and now zoomed in, so you must have dropped your bandwidth.
Yeah, I had to go and put another 20 cents into the slot there.
I didn't know if it was you guys or me, so we might just want to edit out part of the video. Yeah. Anyway.
What points were we lost?
Oh, you were still talking about the Unix and the opposition that you were met with at your school, and I was just about to ask if you felt the prevalence of things like your Raspberry Pi, your Arduinos, and all of their little circuit kits that you can get now at schools are kind of a way back into that level. So you've got your high-end Mac and Windows thing, but there's still the opportunity to learn what's going on. not as complex, but there's still that kind of foundation.
Absolutely, you're right there. I'm extremely pleased at the Raspberry Pi. I think the Arduino is wonderful. I've got 2 Raspberry Pis and 1 Arduino at home at the moment. I expect there'll be a few more added in due course. And the new little BBC thing we're going to get in the UK next month.
Can you describe that? Because I heard that everybody's going to get his own little computer.
Precisely. Every year 7 child is going to get his own little computer, but it's, I'm afraid, a very limited machine. It has just 25 LEDs as output. I can't remember all the other specs, but there's not very much of it. You need quite a lot of extra bits to actually use it.
Okay.
But it's called the Microbit, I think. The BBC is producing it. I know very little about it, actually. But what I do know is that the Raspberry Pi and Arduino have made a huge difference in the past year or 2, and they will go on making a big difference. But you need bigger machines. You've got to have something with a couple of big screens on it to do useful work.
So if I took this microbit and had 8 of them, I could make a microbyte?
Smaller than that? Well, yes, 8 of them would make a microbyte.
Yeah,
exactly.
and if I make enough of them, I could make a microB.
Well, perhaps, yes. The microB, I remember, it was around, what was it, 35 years ago or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, each one will make a single 5x5 display. And I do not know what's going to happen with them or how they're going to be integrated into the curriculum or everything else. But I look forward to them. They are another excellent innovation.
Now, you've always challenged the notion of how we teach IT, and I get to think about, we've come a long way. We were at one stage just teaching kids how to send emails, mail merging with Word, and some teachers are stuck in that.
Terrible.
Computing only needs to go as far as Excel
That's it.
and PowerPoint.
The syllabus was MS Word, MS Excel, MS PowerPoint, and possibly a bit of data processing as well. That was really a terrible syllabus, and you could say it's the reason why I resigned and went into archives instead of computing. But I think things are looking up now, and luckily Microsoft is going down a little bit, and Apple is taking over. But this is in some ways a pity because Apple machines are rather expensive and schools are not very rich. As I was about to say, or what I was saying when we were cut off, is I was recently in Hong Kong, that is on my way to Australia, and there they're selling 7-inch Android pads, like 7-inch iPads, at 20 UK pounds, 40 Hong Kong dollars. Sorry, 40 Australian dollars each. Or maybe you'll get it for 60 Australian dollars in Australia. This is cheaper than an iPad. If you want to equip a school completely with them, it does seem to me that if a school hasn't got a lot of money, they would save money.
And kind of easier to open them up and see how they work because it's not as expensive to.
Precisely. In fact, none of these pads you can see how they work. So you open them up and you get the same circuit board inside on which all the useful things are far too small to be seen. But at least you can open up the software and see it. Unfortunately, to open the software, you can't use a pad to do it because you need a huge, great screen to see the software and to play with it.
I'm excited by the makerspace culture because often it takes devices like that and reappropriates them in a way that we hadn't originally thought of.
Absolutely, yes.
And is there much of a makerspace culture in the UK where people are experimenting and readapting and building and sharing?
Not as far as I know, or rather I'm quite sure there is, but I don't know of it. I'm afraid I'm speaking a little bit out of touch with what's actually going on in the classroom, even though I'm working in a school.
But you saw some interesting things in Perth only last week.
Oh yes, I mean they are doing a fantastic lot in Perth. This nutcase Mark Weber is really churning things in Perth. And this will all be very good.
And a shout out to Mark when he's looking back over this
video. I know
video.
some of this is going on in England. I don't actually know where at the moment. I'm not keeping up with it as much as I should. So I'm spouting off without knowing as much as I should about what is currently going on. Nevertheless, I would put in a strong word for the Linux, Android type platforms, partly on account of their cheapness, partly on account of what can be done with them.
I think there's some great ideas, and I look forward to having you at a future show. It'd be nice to have a report when you return from the Antipodes.
Well, when my home systems are working again, I can show you some of these actually in operation.
That'd be fun, and give us a bit of a walking tour, as you can with your phone, some of the different systems that you have.
Yes, some Monday morning at about 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning.
No,
yes, and you can show us the sunshine. We love that when you join our evening hangouts.
Talking about the UK, sunshine is not really the right word to use.
So we don't have
daytime weather as opposed to bright sunshine.
Daytime weather, yes.
They have a lot of it in Queensland. Flash it on their number plates in their cars.
Yes, well, in Brisbane you do rather well.
We have to bottle it in Melbourne, and we sort of take it out of the fridge when we need some.
Our idea of winter is probably like your summer, so, you know.
Agreed. Well, it's been a wonderful show. Chris has to actually make an early flight back to Melbourne, so as much as I'd like to stay and chat, I also want to give enough time home so we can have a cup of tea before he heads out.
Well, thank you very much.
And Amanda, it's been good to catch up with you again.
Yeah, you too. And it's been really nice, Chris, to be able to see you so clearly. And it's so surreal to see you next to Roland as well.
And he has a voice too. Sometimes he's have to gesture with his hands as he's working out, because Chris is always a pioneer. He's even gone ahead of the voice communications now, and you have to catch up with him on his various devices.
What it means is that, just like devices here, it frequently doesn't work. And some of that may be because it's entirely Unix, and I don't have the Macintosh or Windows machines.
Or we're actually at that cutting edge where it bleeds, and we just have to accept the pain and take the growing that comes from it.
Bleeding is what it did. An hour or so ago, the builders building my extension cut my power off, and all my systems went down. I don't know when they will come up again.
Isn't it amazing that we have that in Australia here? I mean, since we built the overhead we actually still, I believe, Amanda, that we're still rolling out the overland telegraph. I heard that Australia is laying out more copper than optic fibre at the moment, so we can get our NBN in place.
Ah, yes, good times in Australia. We're so big.
Thank you. It's been a good night tonight, and thank you everybody else for listening in. And if you're coming back to look at this recording, Mark, there was a shout out. If you just wind back a couple of minutes. All the best, everyone. Bye.
Good night.
Bye.